had been killed unlawfully. To cheers and applause from bereaved relatives, the jury also concluded the match commander's actions on the day amounted to gross negligence, and that police errors at the turnstiles added to the danger. Crucially, they find the Liverpool fans were not to blame. In a moment, we'll be talking to some of those relatives and also looking at how Hillsborough affected policing and how it has changed football and shaped Britain. And of course, discussing what will happen next. But first, our chief correspondent Alex Thompson has this report from Warrington Coroner's Court.
The fact is, the indictment is, they did walk alone for years. Relief, smiles, laughter and tears, of course. 27 years on, the truth of the Hillsborough disaster is delivered. The jury at the biggest courtroom hearing this country's ever seen walks with them now.
Honest to God, you think you won the loss?
We were crying, we were shouting, we were shaking, we just couldn't explain it, to be honest.
You have to get us to the people of Liverpool to fight a cause that was so unjust, so unfair, and we've done it, and we've won it, and to me, I'm proud of every one of them, every one of them.
The 6 women, 3 men jury ruled that comprehensively South Yorkshire Police's actions caused and contributed to the disaster that sunny April day, April the 15th, 1989. That the police failed to establish safety cordons as fans poured up Leppings Lane towards the stadium. That the police failed to respond to the build-up at the turnstiles. That Sheffield Wednesday should have called for the kick-off to be delayed and didn't do so. At 2:52, this man, Chief Superintendent David Duckenfield, the match commander on the day, ordered the exit gate C to be opened. Thousands of Liverpool fans flooded in, and the jury found that that move caused the lethal crush in the pens 3 and 4 behind the goalmouth. The jury further said South Yorkshire Police failed to respond or communicate with each other after that exit gate had been opened and the fans rushed in. They failed to close the gate leading to the terraces, which had become a death trap. They said the police simply lost command and control of the situation. In short, the jury ruled the 96 died and were killed unlawfully. The jury were directed by the coroner that they could only make that critical finding of unlawful killing if they were sure that David Duckenfield had a duty of care to the 96 on the day and was in breach of that duty of care, that they were sure that being in breach caused their deaths and that that was gross negligence. By a majority, the jury decided that that is the central truth of Hillsborough. That is the same David Duckenfield who admitted at the inquest he had lied even as the disaster was unfolding, telling Graham Kelly of the FA that Liverpool fans had forced open the gate when in fact he had ordered it be opened. And that is the central smear that lasted for years after Hillsborough. No wonder those who played such a central part in overturning that smear, the families and the survivors, were engulfed in the media today.
We've known all along what had happened. We've said these many years. I think if anyone's a winner today, it's society at large, in that no matter who you are, how big you are, or where you are in the state or organisation, that, you know, the public will come after you if you do anything wrong.
I've never been so happy to see so many women in tears, he said. Not for the first time, South Yorkshire Police could do nothing but apologise, and they did.
On the 15th of April 1989, South Yorkshire Police got the policing of the FA Cup semi-final at Hillsborough catastrophically wrong. It was, and still is, the biggest disaster in British sporting history. That day, 96 people died and the lives of many others were changed forever. The force failed the victims and failed their families. Today, as I have said before, I want to apologise unreservedly to the families and those affected.
This police force has consistently...
South Yorkshire.
This police force has consistently, down these 27 years, put protecting itself before protecting the people who were hurt by the horror of Hillsborough. That, for me, is a terrible, terrible, terrible crime.
Tears of grief as the coroner worked through the time and cause of death 96 times. Compression, asphyxia. Compression, asphyxia. Compression, asphyxia. On and on it went. Patient, painful. For the survivors and for the families. Survivors like Tim Knowles swept down through the tunnel onto the terracing even as the players came out onto the pitch that day and swept into unconsciousness.
In my mind, I was travelling down a road and I was thinking, get to the end of this road and you'll wake up again. But the road just kept extending and I had this whirring staccato noise like helicopter rotors in my ear. And then, again, I was flung forwards and I resumed consciousness, sort of like a television tuning in. And I was hanging out of the gate in the perimeter fence, trapped below the waist, but free above it. You know, still terrified, but now I was able to act on my survival instinct. I was able to, I could breathe, I could struggle.
The familiar survivor's guilt. Why me when so many others died? But this time after Hillsborough, the smear, the lie of being blamed for what happened.
We were the only disaster survivors who were blamed for causing what nearly killed us. And so that's a huge amount of extra baggage that we had.
Maybe, just maybe, Warrington today has lightened that baggage a little. The false blame, the tabloid smears, led of course by The Sun, it all lives on. Just watch this at the beginning of one of the family's press conferences today.
I'd like to open the floor for questions. I would like you to stand and just say who you are. And can I just say, as I should have said at the beginning, I do hope that there are no members or of the Sun newspaper in this room.
Today's a milestone, but far from the end. A criminal investigation has been running for months into what happened at this stadium 27 years ago and whether crimes like manslaughter were committed.
I really hope, I mean, I've said it before with the police services drinking the Last Chance saloon. This time it might well be.
Why are they drinking the Last Chance saloon?
Well, simply because we have been given a number of tasks in the past where we haven't delivered a really good result.
That's quite a serious allegation, isn't it? Or observation.
It's an observation. I just feel that, perhaps, this has got to be a new beginning, really.
But will it be? In parallel, the Police Complaints Commission is probing allegations that South Yorkshire Police covered up the whole disaster, blaming the fans, not themselves. But after all this time, its boss accepts nobody may end up in the dock. It could well be, could it not, that in fact nobody ends up facing justice for what happened that day on April the 15th because they're either too ill, too far gone into old age, or dead. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
The justice is different things to different people, and I have spent a lot of time talking with the families, talking to people affected by Hillsborough about what justice means. If you're saying it's possible that nobody will be prosecuted, yes, that's possible. But actually, calling people to account, trying to tell the truth, as much truth as we can find, revealing and exposing that, I actually think that is part of justice, and I think that that's worth doing.
Another year for us all to wait. £80 million so far on these investigations. Bloody Sunday, the Mull of Kintyre, Birmingham 6, the Guildford 4, Deep Cut, and now Hillsborough, of course. Isn't it time the rule of law in Britain mattered when it should, instead of a generation late? Well, whilst Britain waits for an answer to that wider question, more immediately the time frame looks like this. The IPCC and the police criminal investigation, they're going to wind up around the end of the year. If there is something to say, they will send papers on to the CPS. CPS look at those for about 3 to 4 months and then take any possible criminal prosecutions after that. In short, about another year for the next chapter possibly the final chapter, when you could, repeat could, see people in the dock over Hillsborough. Well, now, whilst we wait for that to happen, the vexed question of one Kelvin Mackenzie remains. Kelvin Mackenzie, of course, has never fully explained why he overrode his own journalist to write the notorious headline, which, as we mentioned in the package back there, the Sun still remains boycotted across large areas of Merseyside. Well, today, at least one reporter caught up with Kelvin Mackenzie, and this is what he had to say.
I agree with it. I absolutely agree with it. It's been an absolute disgrace what the police have done in South Yorkshire this last 27 years. I feel desperate for the families and the people, and I also feel that in some strange way I got caught up in it. I feel terrible for them.
Strange way? You printed it on the front of your paper?
Yeah, of course I did. Everybody got sent this agency story. I printed it in that way. But honestly, the way it affected those families was a disgrace. I'm delighted for the families.
So there you have it. From him, it's all the police's fault. There are one or two people on Merseyside who still won't quite agree with Kelvin Mackenzie. Back to you, John.